I woke to silence. Not the kind of silence you get when you close yourself in a room and shut the door. This was a suffocating, crushing silence. The kind that made you think the universe itself had abandoned you. My ship's alarms had long since died down to a faint, sickly whine. The emergency lights flickered weakly, struggling against the darkness. I shifted in my seat, every muscle in my body aching as though gravity itself was punishing me. My ribs screamed when I tried to take a breath, and the metallic taste of blood filled my mouth. The cockpit smelled like burnt wiring and leaking coolant. My console was a shattered ruin of cracked screens and half-dead gauges. It took me a long moment to piece together what had happened. Then it came back in flashes. The sudden shriek of the collision alarm, the view screen filling with jagged shadows, the impact slamming me forward, the world spinning in chaos. An asteroid, that was all it had taken. One nameless rock drifting through the void had turned my ship into a coffin. When I finally crawled free of the wreckage, I realized I was lucky to be alive. Or maybe unlucky. The ship had crash-landed hard on Orvanes' moon, a barren stretch of gray rock and jagged cliffs, lit only by the pale glow of its distant parent planet. There was no atmosphere worth breathing outside. No food, no water, just endless rock, silence, and the constant reminder that no one knew I was here. The first day, I kept busy with survival. It's the only way to keep panic from eating you alive. I scavenged what I could from the ruined ship, ration packs, a half-crushed water canister, an emergency blanket, and my flare gun with 3 shots. My oxygen generator was cracked, but still working at a fraction of capacity, enough to keep me alive inside the cockpit, as long as I didn't waste power. I told myself rescue would come. Maybe a passing patrol would pick up my distress signal. Maybe someone back at port would notice I'd gone missing. I clung to that thought like it was oxygen. The second day, hope began to thin. The distress beacon was fried. The transmitter was gone. I tried jury-rigging a replacement, but the circuits were too badly burned. No signal would escape this moon. I was invisible. I rationed my food and water carefully. Half a ration pack for breakfast, half for dinner. Sips of water, so small they barely touched my tongue. My lips cracked. My hands shook when I tried to write in my log. That night, I thought I heard something outside. A sound, faint, like footsteps on rock. I froze in my seat, staring out the fractured viewport at the endless gray plain. Nothing moved. No shadows. No dust trails. Nothing. Just the endless silence. I told myself it was the ship settling, or my mind playing tricks from exhaustion. But I couldn't shake the thought that something was out there, watching. By the third day, my body began to betray me. My head throbbed. My stomach cramped. My throat felt like sandpaper. I found myself talking aloud, just to hear a voice. Sometimes I caught myself answering questions no one had asked. That night, I dreamed of water. A river flowing under alien skies, cool and clear. When I woke, my tongue was bleeding. I'd bitten in my sleep. The thirst was maddening. I started seeing things in the rocks. Shapes. Figures. At first, I thought they were shadows, tricks of the light. But sometimes they lingered too long. A tall silhouette standing against the horizon, vanishing when I blinked. A flash of movement near the wreck's edge. Gone when I turned my head. Maybe it was hallucination. Or maybe something lived on this moon after all. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, it gave me a strange kind of comfort. At least it meant I wasn't alone. But the worst part was the silence. No wind, no sound of air, just the groan of cooling metal and the occasional hiss of a leaking valve. Every noise my body made, every cough, every swallow, every rasping breath, was too loud in that stillness. It made me feel like an intruder, like I wasn't supposed to exist here. On the fourth day, I stopped pretending. There was no rescue coming. My water was gone. My food was gone. My oxygen was running dangerously low. I was tired of listening to my own heartbeat hammering in my ears. Tired of waiting. I sat slumped in the cockpit, eyes half closed, ready to let the dark take me. And then I saw it, a flicker of movement across the horizon. At first, I thought it was another hallucination, a trick of my starved brain, just a shadow or a rock slide or another phantom figure. But then it grew brighter, a glow, metallic, moving with intent. I dragged myself upright, every bone in my body screaming. My breath caught in my throat as the shape grew clearer against the empty sky. A ship. For one terrifying second, I thought it was just another asteroid drifting too close, ready to crush me like the first. But no, the shape was wrong. Too angular, too controlled. It wasn't falling. It was descending. My heart hammered, like it was trying to break free from my chest. I stumbled for the emergency locker, hands shaking so badly, I almost dropped the flare gun. I staggered back to the viewport, raised the gun with both hands, and fired. A streak of red fire cut through the sky, brilliant against the endless gray. The ship turned toward me. Someone or something had seen me. For the first time in 4 days, I felt the heavy weight of silence break. Not because it ended, but because now I knew it was about to be filled. And that was somehow even worse. The flare's red trail still burned in my vision long after it faded from the sky. My hands trembled around the empty launcher. I didn't dare breathe, didn't dare move. The ship had turned toward me. It descended slowly, like a predator circling its prey. The shape of it grew sharper as it cut through the dim light of Orvanes' moon. It wasn't human, not military, not civilian, not anything I'd seen in the trade lanes. Its hull was jagged, uneven, almost insectoid. Plates overlapped like armor, and spines jutted out in strange patterns that looked less like engineering and more like growth. The thrusters glowed a sickly green, sputtering in a rhythm that made my stomach twist. No human ship would have been built this way. For one moment, as its shadow fell over my wreck, I wished I hadn't fired that flare. Maybe I would have been better off dying alone than being found by whatever piloted that thing. But it was too late. The ship settled onto the plain with a shuddering hiss. Dust plumed into thin, airless void, catching the weak light like smoke. A ramp unfolded from the belly of the craft. Slamming into the rock with a weighty thud, I felt through my boots. Something moved at the top of the ramp. I gripped the flare gun tighter, though it was useless now. My chest rose and fell in shallow bursts as the figure emerged. The first thing I noticed was its height. Taller than me by at least 2 heads, with a body that was vaguely humanoid but elongated in strange ways. Its arms hung too long, ending in hands that flexed with too many joints. Its legs bent forward then backward, like they couldn't decide which way they were meant to go. The head was the worst. Smooth and pale, stretched back into a ridge, with no mouth that I could see. Just 2 deep-set eyes that glowed faintly, like dying coals. The way it tilted its head as it looked at me, like I was a specimen pinned to a board, made my stomach turn cold. I stumbled back into the cockpit of my wreck, half hiding behind the bent frame of the viewport. The creature paused at the base of the ramp, its head cocking further, studying me. Then it raised one hand. A sound filled my ears, metallic, grinding, layered with static. It wasn't speech. It was noise, like a dozen signals overlapping into something that almost resembled a voice. I clutched my ears, teeth clenched, until the creature seemed to realize it was useless. It reached into a pouch strapped to its side and pulled out a device, small, hexagonal, its surface shifting like liquid metal. It pressed the thing to its throat. The noise returned, but this time it was different, clearer. Words crawled through the static, broken but understandable. "You human?" I swallowed hard. "Yes." The creature tilted its head again. Its glowing eyes flickered faintly. Then, injured, dying, ship broken. It wasn't a question. It was a statement, flat and precise. "Yes," I said again, my voice cracking. "Asteroid strike. I've been stranded. For days. No food. No water. No nothing." The alien was silent for a long moment, just watching me. My heart hammered, so loud I swore it could hear it. Then finally, "I take you." I blinked. "What?" "Take. You. Destination." Relief crashed into me so hard I nearly sobbed. I staggered forward, gripping the frame of the cockpit for support. "You'll take me?" You'll get me off this rock." The alien didn't answer right away. It simply turned, climbing the ramp back into its ship. Then it stopped, glancing over its shoulder with those burning eyes. Follow. Inside the alien vessel, the air was thicker, heavy with metallic tang that clung to the back of my throat. The walls weren't smooth panels like on human ships. They were ribbed and uneven, veins of dim light running through them like bioluminescent channels. The whole place felt alive, as though the ship itself was breathing. The alien led me through a narrow corridor, its long limbs moving with unnerving grace. Every step echoed too loudly against the metallic floor. My boots sounded clumsy in comparison, like I didn't belong here. We passed doors that pulsed faintly as though something on the other side was listening. I tried not to look at them too long. Finally, the alien stopped before a small chamber. It gestured with one long-fingered hand. "Here, stay." The room was bare, save for a recessed seat and a thin slot that looked like it could dispense something. Food? Water? I didn't care what. I stumbled inside, collapsing onto the seat. My body shook as adrenaline drained out of me. For the first time in days, I wasn't staring at the endless void of Orvanes' moon. For the first time, I wasn't alone. The alien lingered in the doorway. Its eyes flickered again as it studied me. "Do not leave room. Dangerous." I frowned. "Dangerous? What's dangerous?" It didn't answer. It simply turned and walked away, the door sliding shut behind it with a hiss. I didn't know how long I sat there. Minutes. Hours. My sense of time had already broken back on the moon. But eventually, the slot on the wall hissed, and a tray slid out. Food, or something that passed for it. Gray paste that smelled faintly of minerals. A thin container of water, tinted slightly green. I didn't hesitate. I devoured it like an animal, gagging but swallowing, not caring what it was. When I was done, I leaned back, shaking with exhaustion. Relief washed over me again, but it was thin, fragile, because underneath it was something else. A feeling I couldn't shake. I wasn't safe. Not yet. The alien had said it would take me to my destination. But why? What did it want from me? And if I was supposed to stay in this room because the rest of the ship was dangerous, what exactly was out there? Sleep came in fits, broken by dreams of shadows moving through corridors, of glowing eyes watching from the dark. I woke with a jolt more than once, gasping, convinced something was in the room with me. Each time I was alone, but each time I swore I could hear something beyond the door. A low hum, a whisper, like voices pressed against the metal, speaking words I couldn't understand. I told myself it was just the ship's systems, just the engines, just my brain still fraying from days of hunger and thirst. But the truth was simpler. Something was wrong, terribly wrong, and I was trapped here. The alien left me in that little chamber for what felt like an eternity. No clocks, no sense of time, just a faint pulse of the walls, the dim veins of light shifting slowly like a heartbeat. I tried to convince myself that things were fine, that I was safe, that the alien meant what it said, that it would take me to my destination, and then I'd never see this ship again. But unease gnawed at me. For one thing, the alien hadn't asked where I wanted to go. It hadn't asked for coordinates or a destination, or even who I was. It just said, "I take you," and left me. Who rescues someone without asking questions? And then there was the ship itself. I heard things. At first I thought it was just the machinery, the hum of engines, the grind of gears. But then I began to pick out rhythms. Sounds that didn't match the steady mechanical beat of propulsion. A soft tapping, like fingernails against metal. A hiss, like air leaking through teeth. And worst of all, whispers. They came at night, if you could call it that, when the veins of light dimmed, and I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling. I'd hear them beyond the door. Muffled voices. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. Too many for just one alien. But I was too afraid to ask. On the second day aboard, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. The alien hadn't come back. No updates, no explanation. Just trays of gray food paste sliding through the slot. The silence pressed heavier each hour, and my mind began chewing itself raw. I needed answers. So, When I was sure the corridor outside was empty, I forced the door. It wasn't locked. Not exactly. Just sealed. It took me half an hour of prying, with a bent shard of my crash suit, before it hissed open. The corridor beyond stretched into shadows. Ribbed walls, dim veins of green light. The air smelled faintly of ozone and something sharp, metallic, like dried blood. I hesitated, pulse racing. Then I stepped out. The silence was absolute. Even my footsteps sounded wrong, muffled against the strange floor plating. I passed doors that looked like the one to my chamber, but larger. They bulged slightly, as though whatever lay behind them pressed outward. Some pulsed faintly, and when I leaned close, I swore I heard breathing. I should have turned back, but curiosity pulled me deeper. The corridor opened into a vast chamber. I froze in the doorway, breath caught in my throat. The room was lined with rows of pods. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Each pod was a glass capsule embedded into floor at an angle, like seeds planted in soil. Dim frost clung to the inside of the glass. Cold mist hissed from vents along the sides. At first, I thought they were storage units. Supplies, maybe. Some kind of cryogenic cargo. But as I stepped closer, the truth crystallized. There were faces behind the glass. People. A woman's pale face, frozen in a faint grimace. A child curled into itself, arms wrapped tight. An old man, eyes closed, lips moving in silent dreams. My stomach lurched. I staggered back, hand clapped over my mouth. They weren't cargo. They weren't supplies. They were passengers. Alive. Or at least, they looked alive. I moved down the row, each step heavier than the last. My breath fogged the glass as I leaned close. Most of the pods were human, but not all. Some contained creatures I couldn't recognize. Scale-furred, alien shapes pressed against the frost. Their eyes were closed, but their bodies twitched faintly, as though dreaming. Some weren't so lucky. I stopped before a pod where the glass was smeared dark inside. The figure within had withered to skin and bone, shriveled like a dried husk. Frost clung to its teeth where lips had peeled back. The eyes were open, staring. I stumbled away while burning my throat. My legs shook so badly I had to press against the nearest pod just to stay upright. Inside that one was a man, young, breathing faintly. His lips moved in a whisper I couldn't hear. I pressed my ear against the glass. For a second, I swore I caught the sound of a word. A single word. Help. My stomach dropped. I staggered back, eyes darting across the room. The whispers I'd heard in my chamber. They weren't in my head. They were here, all around me. Hundreds of sleeping voices, bleeding through the frost and glass. It was a graveyard, a prison, a nightmare frozen in time. And I was standing in the middle of it. I don't remember how long I wandered through that chamber. Maybe minutes. Maybe hours. Every pod was worse than the last. Some faces peaceful. Others twisted in horror. A few pressed against the glass, hands outstretched, as though clawing for freedom in their final moments before the cold took them. My skin crawled. My breath came in short, sharp bursts. My heart hammered, so hard it hurt. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Coming from the far end of the chamber. I ducked behind a row of pods, pressing myself flat against the floor. My lungs burned as I tried to hold my breath. The alien entered. Its tall shape moved between the rows, its glowing eyes scanning the pods. It paused now and then, pressing one long-fingered hand against the glass as though checking on its cargo. It moved with calm precision, like a farmer tending crops. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying it wouldn't notice the pod-eyed smudge of my breath, praying it wouldn't hear the thunder of my heartbeat. At last, it moved past me. Its footsteps echoed down the chamber, fading into silence. Only then did I dare crawl back to my feet, trembling. I didn't go back to my chamber. Not yet. I couldn't, not with the knowledge of what was out here. Instead, I slipped deeper into the rows, past the pods, until I found a narrow maintenance hatch at the rear of the room. I crawled inside, pressing myself against the cold metal, and tried to slow my breathing. My thoughts raced, crashing into each other like meteors. Who were these people? Why were they here? Why had the alien collected them? And the most important question of all, if this was a cargo, what did that make me? I don't know how long I stayed hidden in that maintenance shaft. The cold seeped into my bones, and my body screamed for rest, but sleep wouldn't come. Not after what I'd seen. Not with the whispers still echoing in my ears. The faces behind the glass haunted me every time I blinked. The frozen child, the withered husk, the man whispering for help. I thought I'd known loneliness back on the moon, but this was worse. That had been the loneliness of emptiness. This was the loneliness of being surrounded by people who couldn't reach me, people who were alive but locked away in a sleep that looked worse than death. At some point, I knew I couldn't just hide. I had to face it. I crawled out of the shaft, my hands and knees aching, and crept back into the chamber. The pods loomed over me like silent witnesses, their fog surfaces glinting faintly in the sickly green light. And then I made my mistake. I spoke. Why? My voice cracked. My throat was raw from thirst, from fear, from silence. Why are they here? The words bounced back at me in the stillness, echoing between the rows. And then a deeper voice answered. Because war makes everything valuable. I spun. The alien stood at the far end of the chamber, its tall form half-shrouded in mist. Its glowing eyes burned through the haze, locked on me. My mouth went dry. My hand tightened instinctively on a shard of metal-eyed pride from my door. Though it was laughable as a weapon, the alien stepped closer, slow, deliberate. The translation device at its throat crackled, turning its layered, grinding voice into something I could understand. They are refugees, run from fire, run from death. No ships, no homes. I take them. I shook my head, heart slamming against my ribs. That's not rescue. That's storage. You're keeping them like cargo. The alien tilted its head, studying me. Cargo. Refugees. Same. Alive until sold. Dead if not. The words hit me like a blade. Sold. It didn't flinch. War is hunger. War is markets. People trade food, weapons, planets, and lives. I take them across borders. Some pay. Some cannot. All worth something. I staggered back, bile rising in my throat. My stomach twisted so hard I thought I would vomit. You're trafficking them. The words felt like poison in my mouth. You're selling them. Like slaves. The alien's eyes flickered faintly. Not shame. Not anger. Just something that might have been amusement. You say slave. I say cargo. Language is nothing. Price is everything. I shook my head violently. You saved me. You said you'd take me to my destination. It stepped closer. Its shadow stretched long across the rows of pods, swallowing me. Yes, you were dying. Worthless on moon. Worth something alive. You are cargo now, too. The air left my lungs a rush. For a moment, I couldn't even think. Just the sound of my pulse in my ears. The cold bite of fear sinking into my chest. I stumbled back against one of the pods, my palm pressing against the glass. The figure inside twitched faintly, lips moving as if trying to speak. You can't, I whispered. You can't sell me. The alien leaned down, so close I could see my reflection warped in its cold red eyes. Already sold. I don't remember how long I stood frozen there. Seconds. Hours. The whispers seemed to grow louder, filling the chamber, pressing into my skull. Some of the pods rattled faintly, frost cracking on their surfaces. I could swear the figures inside were stirring, restless, as if they sensed my fear, as if they knew what awaited me. The alien moved away with a fluid grace, checking another row. Its long fingers skimmed the glass of a pod containing a woman with silver hair, her face serene in sleep. It tapped the glass lightly, almost affectionately. Some will fetch high price. Some will not. Depends on buyer. Humans, still new, rare, curious species. It glanced back at me, and for the first time since it found me, I realized the truth. It hadn't saved me. It had collected me. My knees weakened, and I dropped to the floor, clutching the shard of metal like it could anchor me to reality. I wasn't a passenger. I wasn't a survivor. I was product. I must have blacked out at some point. Stress, exhaustion, shock. I woke back in the chamber the alien had given me, lying on the recessed seat. My head pounded, my throat was dry, and my stomach churned. For a moment, I convinced myself it had been a nightmare, that I hadn't wandered into that chamber, that I hadn't seen the pods, that the alien hadn't told me what I already knew deep down. But then I heard the whispers again, faint, muffled, bleeding through the walls. And I knew it was all real. I tried to think rationally, but panic clawed at my mind like a living thing. My thoughts tangled and frayed. If I was cargo, what happened next? Where was I being taken? Who would buy me? What would they want with me? I thought of the husk I'd seen in the pod, skin shriveled tight against bone, lips curled in a permanent scream. Would that be me? Would I rot away behind glass, forgotten, unsold? Or worse, would someone buy me alive? And what would they do to me? The images came unbidden. A dissecting table, a gladiator pit, a laboratory where my body became nothing more than material for experiments. I pressed my hands over my ears, rocking back and forth, trying to block it out. But the whispers seeped through, always seeping through. I was one of them now. Another voice in the dark. Another scream locked behind glass. Unless I did something. The alien hadn't taken my flare gun when it found me. It hadn't bothered to search me at all. I still had it, tucked into the folds of my crash suit. And now I knew what I had to do. I couldn't wait. Couldn't sit here until the ship reached whatever black market awaited us. I had to escape, even if it meant tearing this ship apart. Even if it meant unleashing whatever nightmares slept in those pods. Even if it meant dying in the attempt. Because the alternative wasn't living. It was being sold. It was being cargo. And I refused. I don't think I slept that night. Not real sleep. My eyes closed. But my body stayed wound tight. Every nerve stretched to its breaking point. The whispers rose and fell around me like a tide, seeping through the walls, until I couldn't tell if they came from the pods or my own mind unraveling. I clutched the flare gun against my chest. The metal was cold, hard, real, my only anchor, my only weapon. The alien thought it owned me, thought I was already sold. But I wasn't going to let it chain me in glass. I was done being cargo. When I finally forced myself out of the chamber, the ship was unervingly silent. The long corridors breathed with the hum of machinery, lights flickering in broken intervals. Somewhere far below, I heard the dull thrum of the engines. The alien wasn't in sight. I crept forward, hugging the shadows, the flare gun heavy in my hand. Every step sounded too loud. My boots seemed to echo, announcing me to the entire ship. I told myself I was heading for the escape pods, but deep down I knew the truth. I couldn't leave them. Those faces, those whispers, they were with me now, stitched into my thoughts. I couldn't abandon them, no matter what the alien had planned. I found myself back at the cryo chamber before I even realized my feet had carried me there. The pods glowed in their eerie green light, stretching out into the darkness like a graveyard. Only it wasn't a graveyard. Not yet. I pressed my hand to one of the nearest pods. Inside, a woman floated, suspended, her lips parted as if she were whispering in her sleep. "I'll get you out," I whispered. My voice trembled. "I'll get us all out." The controls weren't hard to find. Panels inset along the chamber's walls, alien symbols crawling across them like insect trails. I didn't understand the language, but the interface was simple enough. Rows of status indicators, locks, release functions. My hand hovered over controls, sweating, shaking. If I freed them, the alien would know. It would come, and there was no way I could fight it. But if I didn't, I was already lost. I slammed my palm against the release. A hiss filled the chamber, loud, violent. One of the pods cracked open, vapor pouring out in a choking cloud. The figure inside collapsed forward, spilling out onto the floor. It was a man. Human, thin to the point of breaking, his skin pale, his eyes sunk in hollows. He gasped, coughed, his chest heaving like he'd been drowning. I dropped to my knees beside him. "It's okay. You're safe now." But then more hisses filled the air. The other pods, The entire row was waking up, locks clattering open, lids creaking, vapor flooding the room until I couldn't see more than a few feet in front of me. Hands clawed at the floor. Bodies spilled out, some human, some not. Alien shapes twisting and stumbling, voices rising in a chorus of pain and confusion. The whispers were gone. Now they were screams. The alien's roar cut through it all. "What have you done?" Its voice thundered to the chamber, vibrating in my bones. I spun, hard on my throat, as the towering shape emerged from a mist. Its glowing eyes blazed with fury. The freed captives staggered, panicked, some collapsing, some crawling, some clawing at each other. They didn't know where they were. They didn't know what had happened. And I, idiot that I was, hadn't thought this far ahead. The alien surged forward, its limbs unfolding in unnatural ways, long fingers slashing toward the nearest freed captive. The man barely had time to scream before he was hurled against the wall, his body crumpling with a sickening crack. I raised the flare gun, my hand trembling so hard I nearly dropped it. "Stay back." The alien's eyes snapped to me, and then it smiled. "You think you can stop this?" I fired. The flare burst out in a searing flash, slamming into the alien's chest. Fire bloomed across its body, and it howled, staggering back, flailing at the flames. The chamber lit up in violent red, shadows dancing across the pods. The captives screamed louder, their panic turning into chaos. Some crawled for the exits. Some clawed at each other in blind terror. I didn't wait. I bolted. The corridors blurred past me, my lungs burning, the flare gun still smoking in my grip. The ship groaned and shuddered behind me, the alien's roars echoing through the walls. I stumbled down flight after flight of stairs, following the emergency markings on the walls. My chest felt like it would tear apart, my legs like they would give way. But I didn't stop, not until I reached the escape bay. The pods lined the walls like eggs, sleek and waiting. For a moment, I thought, just for a moment, that I'd made it, that I could slip inside one of them, launch away, and never look back. Then the alien's shadow fell across the threshold. Its body was charred and smoking where the flare had hit, but it was alive, more alive than anything should have been. Its eyes burned hotter than before, locked on me with murderous clarity. I staggered backward, fumbling for the nearest pod. My fingers scrambled over the controls, slamming down on the hatch release. The pod opened with a hiss. I threw myself inside. The alien lunged. I slammed the hatch shut. Its claws scraped across the glass, leaving gouges as deep as knives. My heart nearly burst out of my chest as I hit the launch sequence. The pod shuddered, systems roaring to life. The alien's face loomed through the glass, its eyes glowing brighter than stars. Its voice thundered through the hull, the translator device sparking, but still clear enough to understand. "You are mine. Cargo. You cannot run." And then the pod blasted free. The force slammed me back into the seat, crushing the air out of my lungs. Stars exploded across my vision as the pod hurtled into the void, tearing away from the alien ship. Through the viewport, I saw it shrinking behind me, a burning wound in the darkness. Shadows flickered in the windows, bodies moving, writhing, clawing. The freed captives. For a heartbeat, I wonder if I'd save them, or doom them. Then the alien ship roared to life, its engines igniting in a blaze of fire. It was coming after me. The pod rattled violently, systems straining to hold together. Warning lights blared across the console, alien symbols flashing red. My oxygen levels were dropping fast. I leaned forward, gasping, staring at the streaking stars outside. Maybe I'd escaped. Maybe I hadn't. Maybe the alien would catch me. Maybe someone else would. But I wasn't cargo anymore. Not yet. Not while I still breathed.